When I was a kid, a penknife wasn't a weapon, it was freedom. Fast forward a few decades and carrying that same knife today could get you arrested. So what changed? When did everything get so fragile? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Jim Bob and welcome to Jim Bob's EDC, where I share everyday carry setups, gear reviews, pocket dumps and more. If you are into EDC knives, multi-tools, flashlights, kits and pouches, or just like seeing what people actually carry, you are in the right place. Because what you carry, carries you. To jail, if you're not careful. I recently found this buried in a box in my mum's attic 35 years after I left home. Sorry, Mum. It's a 3-inch folding pocket knife from the late 1970s. Probably a gift from a family holiday in North Wales or the Yorkshire coast. And yes, you could absolutely buy penknives for 9-year-olds in seaside gift shops back then. We'd head into the woods with our pocket knives, sharpening sticks, carving initials into trees, or making campfire tinder for the Scouts, where woodcraft with knives was actually encouraged. Teachers, parents, Scout leaders, nobody panicked. A knife was a tool. You learned respect for it and you quickly learned not to be careless. For most of us growing up before the 1990s, knives were just part of life. All the adults had one. Dads, anglers, tradespeople, maybe like this vintage Sheffield stainless steel little beauty that belonged to my late uncle. That first little gift shop knife wasn't fancy or even particularly sharp, but it felt grown up, a ticket to independence. We learned to cut rope, strip bark, make spears. It wasn't rebellion, it was craft. There was trust from adults, from society, that you would use it properly. And somewhere along the line, that trust vanished. Through the 1980s, things started to shift. Maybe it was urban life, TV, computer games, shrinking open spaces. Kids playing out and hanging around outside like they always had done were suddenly labelled with anti-social behaviour. At the same time, knife-related violence started to rise, especially among young men in cities. What had been a boy's pocket tool became, in the public eye, a potential weapon. And when the headlines came, gang fights, youth murders, teen killer with knife and the like, fear took over. Politicians love a bandwagon and knife laws became a safe one to jump on. And that's when the rules we still live under today began to take shape. The key piece of legislation is Section 139 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988. It made it an offence to carry any bladed or sharply pointed article in public without good reason. But there was one small exception. You could carry a folding pocket knife if the cutting edge was less than 3 inches and it didn't lock. That small technical detail still defines what you can legally carry in the UK today, nearly 40 years later. Locking knives, fixed blades, anything longer than 3 inches, they all require this good reason. Later laws, the Offensive Weapons Acts of 1996, 2006 and 2019 added even more bans. Flick knives, butterfly knives, zombie knives, disguised blades and even online sales restrictions. You cannot buy a Leatherman from Amazon without age verification in person on delivery. The goal was clear. Bans would reduce knife carrying, which would reduce knife crime. Simple, right? But laws only tell half the story. What really changed was how people thought about knives. In the 60s and the 70s, a penknife still meant self-reliance. By the 2000s, it meant risk. Schools banned them outright, probably sensible in hindsight. Scouts phased out sheath knives that once hung proudly from belts, and parents started saying, "Leave it at home." These days, even saying you carry a knife raises eyebrows unless you quickly add, for opening Amazon boxes, obviously. Our hysterical media didn't help. Every stabbing became a front page headline and every new law was treated as a victory, and yet the violence never stopped. So what's actually happening? Well, according to the Office for National Statistics, there were around 50,500 knife or sharp instrument offences recorded in England and Wales in the year ending March 2024. That's around 90 offences per 100,000 people, though it varies massively by region. In London and the West Midlands, it's roughly 150 to 180 per 100,000, and in rural counties, it is a fraction of that. When it comes to homicides, around 244 deaths involved a sharp instrument that year, 41% of all murders. I actually thought it would be higher. Most offenders and victims are male, often teenagers or young adults. Not exactly the Victorinox and multi-tool crowd. Among 10 to 17-year-olds, there were over 3,000 recorded knife offences in the same year. And then there's the even harder truth. In London, black Londoners make up 13% of the population, but around 45% of knife murder victims and over 60% of knife perpetrators, according to the London Assembly. So yes, knife crime is real, serious and unevenly spread. But for the vast majority of people in the UK, it is still incredibly rare. For most of us, campers, hikers, tradespeople, EDC enthusiasts, knives remain tools and not threats. And that's the paradox. The people most affected by knife laws aren't the ones committing knife crime. They're the law-abiding carriers, the folks with a multi-tool in the glove box, a Swiss Army knife in the pocket, or a craft knife in the work bag. We've tightened the rules to target the violent few, but those rules now shape the habits of everyone else. Still, context matters. Carrying that Leatherman wave in a toolkit to fix something at work, fine. You've got a reason, just about, although that blade does lock. But clipping it to your jeans and going to the pub, well, that's asking for trouble. Same blade, different story. When I think back to carving those sticks in the woods, it wasn't about the knife at all. It was about trust, responsibility, and learning to handle something sharp with care. Today, that kind of practical trust is almost gone. Children rarely handle real tools, and adults rarely teach them how. And when people don't learn respect for tools, fear will fill the gap. We've lost a culture of capability and replaced it with one of caution. But I still think we can bring some of it back by carrying responsibly, by explaining the difference between a tool and a weapon, and by setting an example in how we act. I still carry a small legal pocket knife, usually my Victorinox Compact, and yes, I'll usually have a multi-tool close to hand as well. The knife is legal, the multi-tool, that might raise a few eyebrows. Knives are useful, practical, and remind me where I came from. That little kid messing in the woods with his mates, learning to carve. But now I carry with awareness of the law, of the risk, of society around me. We can't put the genie back in the bottle. Those days are gone. And after the last few years, when the country practically shut down over a bit of a cold, and people gleefully called the police on their neighbours visiting isolated elderly relatives, society feels more risk-averse and prone to panic than ever. We can't go back to the freedom of the past, but we can carry the principles that made it safe. Respect, responsibility, and purpose. Because what you carry carries you.